Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Brandy Joan and today I'm going to be showing you how to sew up my men's overshirt pattern. And if you want to purchase this pattern, you can get it linked below in the description, and that's pretty much it. So let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is print out your instructions, because that's going to give you all of the important info that you need, like printing, assembling, and how to read your pattern. It's also going to give you the size guide and the list of notions required. The first thing we're going to go over is materials. Depending on your size, you're going to need 2 to 3 yards of fabric, a 1/4 yard of interfacing, matching thread, and 9 buttons 3/8 to a 1/2 inch wide. Before printing your entire pattern, you do want to print just the first page and make sure that that test square at the top right measures accurately. Mine measures 1 inch, so I can start taping my pattern together. And when you print your pattern, you're going to notice there is a slight gap on the edges of the pages, and that is totally fine as long as it's a small gap and the lines of the pattern match up, as you can see here. Once you have all of your pieces assembled and cut out, you're ready to cut your fabric. Be sure to mark all of the notches on the pattern as well as the slits that are on the sleeves. This step isn't necessary, but I am pre-serging all of my edges. First, prep your pieces by applying fusible interfacing to the center front shirts, one of the collars, one of the collar stands, and both of your cuffs. Next, fold the center front shirts twice at the notches, a 1/4 inch, then 1 inch, and press them in place. Don't sew them down just yet. Working with the bottom front shirt, fold the center front to the right side of the fabric at the second notch. Be sure to keep the first notch folded to the wrong side of the fabric. Press and sew that in place with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Trim the excess fabric and turn it right side out. Now, go ahead and top stitch the entire button band in place. Grab your pocket and fold the top down at the notches 1 inch and sew. Next, fold the sides and bottom of the pocket in 1/2 inch, press and baste it in place if necessary. Now, bring your right front shirt over, pin the pocket in place at the line indicated on the pattern, and sew it down. This step isn't necessary, but I did bar tack the top of the pocket to help keep it in place. With your fabric's wrong side facing you, accordion pleat your back piece 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch at the center back. The 2 pleats should meet at the center. Once in place, baste across the pleat to secure it. Now it's time to attach the yokes. Sandwich the lower center back piece in between the 2 yoke pieces. The right sides of the yokes should be together. Pin that in place and sew. Once you've sewn that up, go ahead and trim the excess seam allowance. This will help the yolks lay flatter and it'll be less bulky. Iron the yolks up and top stitch 1/8 away from the edge. And now we're going to attach the fronts to the back at the shoulder seams by first sewing the inner yoke to the front shirt with their wrong sides together. Then press the seams towards the back of the shirt. Press the shoulder seam allowance of the outer yoke in 1/2 inch. Then fold it over the line that you just created, encasing all of the raw edges. Sew that in place and give it a good press. You should now have clean, closed seams on both of your shoulder seams. Now we're going to attach the fronts of the shirt to the back of the shirt at the side seams using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Give those a good press and we're ready to move on to the collar. Sew the 2 collar pieces right sides together along the outer edge. Trim the excess seam allowance, paying close attention to the corners, then turn the collar right side out. give it a good press and top stitch the outer edge. Now, take one of your collar stand pieces and press the bottom seam allowance towards the wrong side of the fabric. Sandwich your assembled collar between the two collar stands right sides together and sew along the inner edge. Trim the excess seam allowance and clip the curved edges. Turn the collar stand right side out and give it a good press. Pin the side of the collar stand that does not have the seam allowance pressed up to the neckline of your shirt, right sides together and sew. Now, take the collar stand with the pressed seam allowance and fold it to the inside of the shirt just over the stitch line that you just created, encasing all of the raw edges. Pin that in place, sew it, and give it a good press. Finish the collar stand by top stitching all the way around it. Now, moving on to the sleeves, grab your plackets and fold the edges to meet in the middle, then again in half. Give it a good press to help hold its shape, but don't sew anything just yet. Pin one side of the sleeve placket to the sleeve slit, right sides together. Sew it in place and trim down the excess seam allowance. Fold down the other side of the placket, encasing all of the raw edges, and sew it in place. Then, trim any excess placket that hangs over the edge. Now, close the placket to the inside of the shirt and stitch a diagonal line at the top. This will help keep the placket folded to the inside of the shirt. And this part of the shirt will get a lot of use, so make sure that you're backstitching to secure it. Now, working from the right side of the fabric, form 2 pleats at the sleeve's edge, following the notches on the pattern. Baste the pleats and the front placket turned to the wrong side of the fabric, in place a 1/4 inch from the edge. Sew the sleeves right sides together along the inner seams. Take your cuffs with interfacing and press the top edges down 1/2 inch to the wrong side of the fabric. Sew the 2 cuffs together along the outer edge with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Turn the cuff right side out, paying close attention to the corners, and give it a good press. Pin the right side of the cuff without interfacing to the wrong side of the sleeve's hem and sew it in place. Take the cuff with the pressed seam allowance and fold it over the stitch line that you just created, encasing all of the raw edges. Sew it in place and finish the cuff by top stitching all the way around it. Turn the sleeve right side out with the body of the shirt inside out. Drop the sleeves into their corresponding armholes. Be sure to match up the front and back notches and the side seams. Pin them into position and sew them in place with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now that the sleeves are done, we can hem the bottom of the shirt using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once everything is sewn up, give the hem a good press. Then it's time to sew your buttonholes and attach your buttons. You should have 1 on the collar stand, 6 going down the front, and 2 on each cuff. But this is also just a preference and you can add more or less if you choose. And there you have it. Look at how good that looks. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye!